Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. As Angela Merkel and François Hollande meet in Berlin this Thursday, we're talking about what's on the menu, and of course that's Greece. And with us from Brussels, Yorgo Chatzimarkakis, member of the European Parliament from the German Liberal Democrats. Here in our studio, Philippe Vechter, chief economist at Natixis, Alessandro Giraldo, economist at Ville Tradition, and joining us from Berlin, a reporter, Peter Bild. Peter, you're listening to that conversation and how in part one there, Yorgo Chatzimarkakis said that from the get-go, the discussion has always been in Germany about whether or not to kick out Greece. Would you say that that is definitely the way the conversation's framed?
Well, let me come back to your opening question. I think the question was that Hollande and Merkel need to find a common language. And I think Mr. Markakis was talking about this, and I feel that probably, and this is also Angela Merkel's preference, that common language at the moment would be French rather than German, irrespective of what people like Volker Kauder say that the whole of Europe is now speaking German. The fact is that Angela Merkel, allegedly the most powerful politician, or certainly the most powerful woman politician, and probably the most powerful politician in Europe, is actually not nearly as powerful as people make out. She is, after all, subject to all of the forces from domestic politics. Mr. Markakis has already mentioned that there is considerable opposition amongst both her coalition partners to the idea of being very European. She's also facing the pressure, and I think she's probably been really quite careful in this, in saying it's no good immediately giving way and saying to indebted countries, yes, of course, we will continue to support you, if you take away the pressure for them to reform. Now, it is entirely possible, I think, that Mr. Samaras, who completely opposed Papandreou when he tried to put through reforms which were not even as drastic as those that Samaras, now Prime Minister, is actually trying to put through. Nonetheless, he may have lost quite a lot of credibility, and there's no question that Angela Merkel hitherto has not been able to stand the sight of him because of his blocking tactics last year when Papandreou was in power. But I think the fact is that now Angela Merkel knows as well as anybody else that you can't simply turn a switch and make a state which has been, in effect, dysfunctional, certainly in its domestic taxing, in its domestic administration. The huge vested interests in Greece, both amongst the old political order, of which certainly the members of the present coalition are part, amongst the public administration, and obviously amongst the professional classes who have paid no tax. So there are enormous vested interests against actually undertaking the really quite savage reform of the Greek public administration. In other words, to make it a functional European state,
so Peter,
like Germany or some others.
What you're saying, Peter, is Angela Merkel can play off François Hollande and say, well, look, I have to be more pro-European because the French are lobbying heavily for it?
I think so. As she can certainly, I think, play off to some extent her political opponents. And by opponents, I really mean the rivals within the coalition parties. The opposition in Germany, the true opposition, the Social Democrats and the Greens, although they would certainly like her to have taken a faster and stronger lead, they're not the real opposition. No, I think she can certainly, to some extent, play off her, as I say, the domestic opposition within her coalition by pointing out that you simply cannot, and she needs to explain this much better to the German people, to Parliament, that you simply cannot turn around a dysfunctional state and make it like any other European state in a question of months or even years. It's probably going to take half a generation before you achieve that. You either get rid of them, you cauterize them, as some people say, which almost certainly would have enormous contagious effects on the rest of the Eurozone, and that's another reason for not doing it. There are also geopolitical reasons for not cutting off Greece.
All right, and we can hear what Angela Merkel had to say just a short while ago in the company of the French president, François Hollande, going into that dinner.
I would like Samaras to know that we would like each party to respect their engagements. As for the decisions to take, we'll wait and see what the Troika's report says, what their results are, but I'd like to encourage our Greek friends to pursue their reforms.
Now, the Vice Chancellor of Germany, the Economy Minister, Philipp Rösler, echoes the tough love pronouncements that we've heard the past couple of days, most notably from the Finance Minister. He said in an interview with Bild, if you don't respect the terms of reforms, you can expect additional financial support. There can be no rebate on reform. Yorgo Chatzimarkakis, your thoughts on those kinds of statements?
Mr. Rösler actually is my party leader, but to be quite clear, I don't agree with the strategy to say these words before even, and he said so before even the Troika had started the journey to Athens. And now he says it again before the Troika has presented their report. It's absolutely true that nobody can lie on the bench with the feet high and say the Germans will rescue us and all the others. That's, of course, true. But not to acknowledge any movement that all these countries under rescue, like the Spaniards, like the Irish, like Portuguese, and like Greece also have done, this is unresponsible. And that is why I absolutely agree what we have heard from Berlin, that Mrs. Merkel cooperates rather more with the opposition, with Greens and Social Democrats, than with her own coalition. And she needs François Hollande, who is from the same party, socialist, as the opposition in Germany. She needs him in order to get her points through. In the past, she only passed through Parliament with the help of the opposition, the rescue packages for Greece, and the very fundamental decision about the ESM. And she wouldn't have had the majority without the opposition. So she needs the opposition. She is in a trap, if you want, between Hollande and the SPD in Germany. And that is why she needs to speak French now in order to get the euro rescued.
All right, we have a prime minister already who speaks German, so maybe they'll find common ground on that point. Peter Bildt, just a little word to you about this meeting that's taking place. A lot talked about this morning on French radio, the fact that going into the meeting, they said there would be no press conference after the dinner. François Hollande reportedly wanted one, but it's not going to happen. Merkel will not speak to reporters. Again, does this all because of that cloudy pre-electoral season that's shaping up?
No, I wouldn't put it down to any sort of deep, dark political motives. After all, it would not be very polite to give a press conference about what you are going to do for Greece or not do for Greece just a few hours before you receive the Greek Prime Minister, however much Angela Merkel may, or however little actually, Angela Merkel may think of Antonis Samaras. It would simply not be diplomatic to hold a major press conference. It's also going to be really rather late at night and at a time when it's certainly not going to get onto the main news broadcasts.
All right, so keeping an eye on the news cycle. Angela Merkel, who, by the way, has lent her name and face to a new campaign to improve the public image of the European Union. We Want Europe is the name of it. It looks like she's got her work cut out. Alessandro Girardo, a poll in Germany, 51% think that the Germans think they'd be better off outside of the Eurozone. 71% favor Greece leaving. But the Dutch bank ING reports in a report that's entitled "Fixing It is Far Cheaper Than Breaking It."
Right.
That breaking up the Eurozone could be disastrous. It would contract Germany's economy by more than a third.
In fact, when I mention this kind of mathematical approach to the problem, that is really game theory. I had in my mind the ING report, that is well done. And my idea is very, very simple. It is that we have one country right now, that is Germany, that is doing a lot of shouting, a lot of music, I would say, and
they hold the purse strings.
Right. But keep in mind that when we have someone that is receiving money, Germany gives something like 25%. I'm rounding the numbers, but Italy and France give much more. And how can we accept Germany to be, as I say always, Nein und gegen? That means against and saying systematically no. Keeping in mind that there is a strong interest for Germany to avoid any big accident, and when I speak to the German banks, they are not very hot to have an accident because they know that they will lose a lot of money. First. Second, I guess that we are in front of a ballot right now that is very much political, where you have some ideas that are very populist, and people are just picking up these kind of ideas that are very much populist because, they
But isn't that what's called democracy?
Sure, I agree, absolutely. But, in some cases, we need to have politicians to teach to the public, teach to the voters what is the best interest, And for the moment, I think that some of the politicians, mainly some people of the coalition, or the CDU, not of the SPD, the opposition, are probably playing much more against Greece than the opposition. And I guess that we are really in a ballot where there is a significant game and iron fist to have the new position of power in Germany.
Philippe Vechter, here in France.
Can I also come back on that?
Sure. Sure, let's pick up on that point quickly. Peter Bilt.
You make the point about the polls showing that 70% or so of Germans would think that Greece should leave and that maybe 50% of them think that Germany would be better off. If, as now looks likely, Germany too is going to go into, at worst, a recession, certainly a period of stagnation, then I think you might well find that public opinion changes in Germany. At the moment, Germans can say, oh, look, we're doing fine, and that's because we're doing it all right, and let's get out of Europe, which obviously doesn't know how to behave. If Germany sees itself in the same boat as the rest of Europe, then I think the we're all in this together attitude will come back much more strongly.
Philippe Vechter, just a word on the attitude of the French, because here in France, Europe has been more popular, you could say, among its politicians than among voters, as is the case across the Rhine. Right now, François Hollande, is he playing his cards right?
Well, for the moment, he is handing his first 100 days, and we have to hear him much more than what we have been able to hear for the moment, and he has to say what he really wants for Greece, for Europe, and
he's playing his cards too close to his chest for you.
Yes, and I would like to mention one thing is if we are in a situation where we are waiting for the general election in Germany next year, we cannot imagine that with this the mood we have concerning Greece currently. We cannot imagine that they will be able to stay inside Eurozone. For one single reason is that you just say Greece will have to do something, and say if they don't, they will exit. That's the discourse we have currently. And so nobody will go to Greece, even for vacation, for investment, etc.
So it's up to France to prevent gridlock at the European level.
Yes, you have to find the solution have to come from Europe too, not only for inside Greece. They made a lot of effort. When you look at primary deficit in Greece, they've made a lot of effort. Now they need our help, and we will not help them saying they will exit next year, next month or so. And
let's pick up on that point, because I think that's an important one. Greeks now in a fifth year of recession. Greek officials arguing that they want the spreading of the cuts over 4 years to help them revive the economy and stabilize finances. Athens University professor Yanis Varoufakis says Samaras is profoundly and deeply and sadly wrong. Greece doesn't need more breathing space. It's not breathing at all. It's been a miserable summer for many, in fact, inside of Greece.
If the Prime Minister can get the time extension in the loan agreement, things will be slightly better than what they are now.
Greece can't go on like this. It's impossible to pay an exorbitant debt exclusively through farmers, workers and small medium businesses. Even if God came down from heaven, he wouldn't be able to achieve this miracle.
Yorgo Chatzimarkakis, I was speaking with a Greek friend of mine just a couple of days ago, a committed pro-European. He said he was back there this summer and he told me, you know what? It's not olive oil that drives our economy, it's tourism. And maybe we are better off leaving the Eurozone. What do you say to that?
Well, it would take some years until tourists discover that Greece has become much cheaper, and it has indeed become much cheaper. This year, the tourist season which is going on is not so as good as the last year's one. And especially German tourists don't come to Greece because of the whole atmosphere that has been created. So it's absolutely true. And I asked in Germany for a subsidy of the German government of €1,000 for every German who goes to Greece. I was laughed. People laughed about it, but from economic point of view, and Nouriel Roubini, the big economist, was in favor of this idea. It's the best thing we can do because we have a surplus in Germany, an enormous surplus, and we have a disastrous recession in Greece. So we have to get it into balance. And what we just heard about, that politicians, our French colleague said it, politicians have to teach, or the Italian, have to teach voters what is going on. This is not happening in Germany at the moment. Germany has won just from the low interest rates that they have to pay for bonds. The last 3 years, 55 billion of euro, just a surplus out of low interest rate. They don't talk about it. And this is something which really disunites the European Union.
All right,
if
so
the
let's
ones
hope,
who have, if the haves don't talk at least about their
talking
surpluses
about it,
and their
let's
wins.
hope that it's not going to be a year of political gridlock across the Rhine. I want to thank you very much, Yorgo Chatzimarkakis, for joining us from Brussels. We want to thank Peter Bild in Berlin, Philippe Vechter and Alessandro Girardo. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.